have got a mess in this country.
The national debt, or the federal debt, is the net accumulation of the federal government's annual budget deficits. In other words, it's the total amount of money that the U.S. federal government owes to its creditors. It is one of the biggest problems in our economy right now. Currently, the United States debt is at an astounding $23 trillion, the highest it has ever been, and it is still expected to rise even more in the future. How fast the national debt is rising annually is surprising. Between September of 2001 and the end of 2008, the national debt spiked from about $3.3 trillion to over $6.3 trillion, roughly $3 trillion over the span of just 7 years. And that's not all. From 2016 and on, more than $1 trillion have been added to the debt each year. That doesn't just happen overnight. So what factors played into this? Well, it's simple: national spending. National spending, or federal spending, is basically the spending of the federal, state, and local governments. National spending is split into 3 different parts: mandatory spending, discretionary spending, and interest on the debt. But why is this a key factor to the debt?
But if you look on the national level, about 2/3 of their spending is almost mandatory spending, which means it's sort of into law. So their problem is they only have about 1/3 of their spending that's discretionary.
Basically, the federal government does not have enough extra money to spare on other programs because all of their money is being used in their mandatory spending, and the other money is going to waste in their unnecessary spending. In recent years, the government has showed us some pretty strong examples of their own unnecessary spending, like the unfinished luxury hotel in Kabul, Afghanistan, which cost $85 million to build. The Overseas Private Investment Corporation loaned $85 million to a contractor for the construction of a hotel and apartment complex that was never completed. Also in late 2016, the Department of the Transportation provided San Diego $1.04 billion to expand the city's trolley service by 10.9 miles, a trolley service that was estimated to be ridden by only 24,600 people daily. These 2 aren't the only examples of unnecessary government spending. However, some cases include the $55 billion that were spent to preserve outdated technology, the $1.2 million spent researching the social habitats of monkeys, and the $1.6 billion that was spent on vehicles that the government probably doesn't need. All of this spending also ties into national debt. In the early 2000s, the national debt spiked, and it still continues to rise. As of November 2019, federal debt held by the public was $17.07 trillion, and intragovernmental holdings were $6 trillion, for a total national debt of $23.08 trillion. Though U.S. government debt is perhaps the most widely held class of security in the world, 26.5% of the debt, about $5.83 trillion, is owed to another arm of the federal government itself. The single biggest creditor, in fact, is Social Security. The program's retirement and disability trust funds together held more than $2.9 trillion.
Reducing the pace of healthcare inflation is the key to controlling the deficit.
Another big holder is the Federal Reserve System, which as of mid-July collectively held nearly $2.1 trillion worth of treasuries, or 9.5% of the total debt. Net interest payments on the debt are estimated to be a total of $393.5 billion this fiscal year, or 8.7% of all federal outlays. By comparison, debt service was more than 15% of federal outlays in the mid-1990s. The share has fallen partly because lower rates have held down interest payments, but also because outlays have risen substantially, about 29% over the past decade. Now you might be wondering, is the national debt something we as citizens need to worry about?
I think the problem with the debt to a large degree is that a lot of people don't see it affecting their everyday life. They don't know that you're paying interest on the debt, that a lot of the good things you can be doing on the federal level you can't do because you're spending so much of your money just paying off the interest in the debt.
Countries that default on their debt, oftentimes very bad things happen to those countries. There are very serious economic repercussions when a country defaults on its debt, from increases in unemployment to drops in income and things like that.
And that's not all. The biggest reason for the debt rising so high is the fact that the national government does not have a balanced budget amendment.
The federal government operates totally differently than the states do. A lot of states, if you look, have balanced budgets, etc. The national government does not have a balanced budget. So that's one of the reasons why they run up, $20 trillion debts.
So when we were asked what is our vision for 2020, we thought of multiple things. But realize that the national debt is more important than any other. It can ruin our economy if not taken care of soon, which is why it should be addressed in the upcoming presidential election.